This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSport Fan Network. TalkSport. Powered by fans.
This podcast is sponsored by AMG Logistics and in association with the Birmingham City Official Supporters Clubs. I'm your host, Craig Courtney, and we're looking forward to the next Blues game and finding out what our opposition fans think. Sit tight and enjoy the next edition of The Away End. Hi, welcome to another edition of The Away End. We are today looking forward to match day 2 in the league, where Birmingham are coming up against Blackburn Rovers at Ewood Park. This comes after the season opener of 1-1 against Ipswich, where, well, I'm going to say it as a Birmingham fan, we were robbed by a referee who, firstly, should never have disallowed the first goal, and most definitely should not have given a handball for something that never was. We go in with that, though, after a real good run, and we want to continue that run as Birmingham fans in the league. We are going to the first time in just over, in fact, since 2023, November 2023, to Ewood Park to play a game, but this time we will be backed by a phenomenal 7,033 away fans. We are filling, ladies and gents, behind the goal. So you can imagine there's going to be a fair racket made. We're hoping to break a horrible run as Birmingham fans that have seen us lose 4 of the past 5 games at Ewood Park in the league. And we drew the other one. So I think it's about time that we are due a win and continue to build that momentum as we go forwards in the league. Rovers, though, are going into their first game at home after a 1-0 defeat against the Albion at the weekend. Very early goal, and I think from what I have seen, a close game afterwards where there are opportunities for both teams to take that forwards. And we'll hear a little bit more shortly in regards to that. I'm joined this evening by Mike Beattie from the Blackburn End podcast. So, Mike, thank you very much indeed for joining us on the Away End.
Yes, mate. Cheers for having me on. It's nice to talk football and proper games rather than pre-season. It's. I just hope that I'm going to be the more positive one after this weekend out of the two of us.
Well, we can hear as well. So, ladies and gents, just so you're not aware and you're not wondering what's going on, but Mike actually is from the Midlands, but he's a Blackburn fan. So the accent, it doesn't really give it away. Yes. But as you can see, the shirts in the background definitely show who he supports. So we go into the game against Blackburn, where we're actually seeing over the years and all of the games that have been played, actually a very close set of results between the two clubs. Birmingham have won 50 games in all the years that we've played against each other, whereas Blackburn have actually won 53. We've drawn the remaining 35. So it's very close when it comes into this. From the last 5 games, 2 wins, 2 losses and a draw. So who knows what's going to happen at the weekend. The last time we played was February 2024, which ended in a Birmingham 1-0 win. However, that was at St Andrews. So, Mike, tell us a little bit about what we can expect from the Blackburn side at the weekend. A side that I think it's fair to say, after many managerial reshuffles, very similar to that of Birmingham, you seem to be getting more of a settled side, and towards the end of last season, we're pulling out some good results. And I think your home form actually is very good as it came to the back end of last year, and as you then start with us now.
Yeah, I think last season we kind of need to ignore now as a fan base, because we've had so much change over the summer. We've lost quite a few players, some by design, some that we obviously wanted to keep and they still left. Tyrese Dolan being one of them. I know he was a player that you guys were looking at. He was a very tricky winger. We couldn't agree on a contract for various reasons, and now he's gone to Espanyol. We've lost Callum Britton, who was someone at right back who was very talented. He's now gone to Borough. So we have lost some players, but I feel like we're two clubs that are very similar. We've had these dodgy owners for quite a while, just like you guys have. and we've both had John Eustace come in and do different, various pieces of work. For us, when Eustace came in, he changed the ethos of the club. So we were someone that was quite young. We liked to bring the youth players through and so on and so forth. And then he came in and he was then going for the Dion Sandersons of the world and wanted to have a little bit more experience. And whilst it worked really well, after saving us from a relegation battle, it kind of came away from that club ethos that we had. And now Ismail's come in. Last year, he was dealt with the cards he was he had to deal with the cards he was dealt, and he finished the season quite strong. And I think a lot of people are going to look at that like you just done. But a few games before the end of the season, we'd all written it off, and we were just thinking we was just a mid-table side, and everyone just gifted us these results. They were all losing. We were starting to win, and at one point on the final day, we was in 5th place, looking to get into playoffs. But a lot's changed since then. The summer's happened. There's a lot's happened in that time. Players have left. The manager's been backed with a bigger contract than previous managers. And we've got new people now making the decisions on players. And we've seemed to have gone bigger, faster, stronger, more athletic players. So I think from a Blues supporter, you're probably, from the last time you played us, you're probably just going to see a little bit of difference there, because we were quite small, we were quite slow. And whilst we had the likes of Sam Smodics, who was just banging them in, the last time we played you, John Ruddy gifted us the game, because I felt like it was actually quite poor that day, and 4-2 didn't tell the result. And looking back at the game now, I remember talking about it after and being really worried about our performance that day. And if it wasn't for John Ruddy, you would have won that game. So I think now what you can expect from us is a team in transition, a team that's trying to figure things out, but we will be faster, we will be stronger.
And I think that's one thing that I noticed, because I made a point of sitting down to watch the game on Saturday with the Albion, because I wanted to see ultimately what Birmingham were going to be up against in the next game. And the one thing I noticed was, on the counter-attack, you were phenomenally quick. It did strike me, and I think, you know, we'll probably come on to this shortly, but Goalkeeper seemed very, very, very apprehensive on Saturday. Don't know whether that's because he's new, whether he's settling in, or whether that was just literally first-day nerves. But I did notice whipping a ball in, which was what the Albion seemed to do an awful lot of. It was, Goalkeeper was not commanding, shall we say, his box area. And that was one weakness that I definitely noticed. But again, it's first game of the season, so don't always take...
Yeah, it's been a position for us since Kaminski left that we've been concerned. We had Pears in, and Pears had a lot of mistakes in him. He had a spell where he started to really play well, and then he fell away again. I mean, I remember Kaminski having an absolute phenomenal game against you at Ewood Park, and he kept us in it that day as well. So to go from that to then Pears, it was really difficult. And Toth, the keeper that played at the weekend, he actually came last year, but he couldn't beat Pears out. And then he finished the season, and he finished quite strong in that. But he's not the biggest, but he is a Hungarian international. He has got some experience about him. But it's them long throws that West Brom do. They just kill you. And
it's the one route, isn't it? It definitely is.
Oh, mate. It's so frustrating. But yeah, he had a couple of moments right at the start, a really weird save that he made that he could have just easily caught. Then he tried to do this cocky little dink over the striker and just gave it back to the striker. But then he made some good saves after that. And hopefully,
make some great saves.
Yeah, so hopefully that's going to give him the confidence, because like I say, if you're bringing that kind of following, when they're behind him, if he does anything wrong, they're going to be on his back. I'm not as concerned about the Goalkeeper as I was, but he's still got a bit to show me before I start talking about being confident in him.
And tell us a little bit about, strengths and weaknesses, because you've mentioned there, as we have done really, we've had a lot of turnaround in staff when it comes to the playing field. And we're still gelling. I think any team actually that's going into it is still looking at that and thinking any new player that's come in hasn't yet really hit the ground running. So tell us a little bit about the ingoings and outgoings that have happened at Ewood Park, and where are the strengths and weaknesses that you see in the team, and then also, how do you think your season will go? Because I do agree, the back end of last season, your form looked really, really good, and Ishmael seems to be able to pull the best out of players, as he has done really at every club that he has been at, and especially where he's given an opportunity. I look back at the Albion and think he wasn't really given a chance, and he didn't really get his opportunity to stamp an authority. How do you think that's working now? So a lot there, but strengths, weaknesses, and where do you think you'll be?
So I've predicted that we're going to be mid-table, and I know that's always a cop-out for any fan to say. But we're a feast or famine club. We have been for a long time. We'll go through this form where we'll just can't buy a win, and then suddenly we'll just go and beat. Like we start to beat in like Leeds and teams like that suddenly, and then we'll go and lose to Rotherham, and then we'll start losing to your Plymouth, and so we're very feast or famine when it comes to form. For me now, what Ismail needs to do is level that out. Find an identity for the club, find an identity of how we're playing, and I think that's what we've tried to do. So the incomings and outgoings, incomings have been a lot younger, faster, bigger, stronger. The outgoings have been like your Andy Vymans of the world, the Danny Barts, the ones that have experience, but they're just that little bit older. So from a transfer point of view, from the outside looking in, it feels like we've tried to improve in certain areas, and that we're trying to now just find a new ethos of the club. When John Eustace came in, he seemed to make us that little bit older and more experienced, which was great at the time. But the longevity of doing that is quite difficult because you've got to have that high turnover of player, and we just didn't have that because, like you, we've had some terrible owners. So now we've gone for these younger players. I've seen him in one game. Pre-season, you just ignore him. And yes, we've beaten Everton in pre-season. We've won quite a few games, but pre-season is pre-season. Now we're getting to the proper meat of it. Seeing us against West Brom, I did feel like I saw glimpses of these players where they can show that we can have a game where we might not be at it like technically, but because we've just got a bit of graft about us and a bit of pace and a bit of strength, we might get a few goals. Yeah, so I think that now our strength's going to be actually what was our weakness is our athleticism, but our weakness is going to be that final third for me. It's just getting goals. I mean, obviously you've gone out, you've gone and got yourself a Stansfield. You've got Gray, who I think's a great player. So now you've got this. You've got some. You're trying to sort the final third. We kind of haven't, and that's the concern for us. So we've got Ohashi. I think he's someone that you guys probably have heard of because I think he was linked to you at one point as well. But it's the creativity in that final third. I think some of our decision making isn't quite where it needs to be in a very competitive league.
And I think it's fair to say, actually, that when you look at all of the teams, the key area is about the goal scoring. It's about having the ability to have somebody that can put the ball away, but you've always got to have those players sitting behind them to thread the ball through or to put in the perfect cross for those people to put away. And you've mentioned Gray there coming into Birmingham. In his first game, he was nullified by an Ipswich side who for me, they targeted him to make sure they kept him out of the game. But when he did actually get on the ball and have those little glimpses, you could see that was still there.
You could tell he had quality.
The danger man for me is the person that I still feel when he gets off the ground and scores his first goal, he's going to go on to get an absolute sackload, and that's Kyojo. And he was the person that looped the ball, the post for Stansfield's finish against Ipswich. He was the guy that had the goal that should never have been ruled off. And I just think, his talent and what they've brought into the club at the moment is phenomenal. We're actually very similar to yourself. We've taken a bunch of youngsters who are keen and eager to show what they can do in order to build for the future. And you have got to sometimes take that dramatic step away from we're going to have the people that we know we can trust So actually, do you know what? Give them a go. If you don't play the
Yeah.
youngsters, you'll never know whether they can cope.
And we're two clubs that need to have that. You know,
Yeah,
you can't we can't go and spend. I know you've got some owners that are backing you now, but we can't keep going and spending money all the time. You need these young players to be coming through. You're going to make some signings that are quite risky, but if you look after your academy like you guys have been doing, like I've seen at my club as well,
mm.
I think you're going to start seeing the fruits of your labour with that. From the outside looking in, because I watched the game on Friday as well, and I've watched quite a lot of Blues games over the years. I'd say that you're definitely a team that runs off emotion and the fans.
Oh God, yeah.
And you can tell when your fans are positive, the team just runs completely differently. The first goal, I know that I can kind of understand why that one wasn't given. I don't want to start everyone getting into the comments having a go at me. This is just outside looking in. You know, I do a lot of coaching. I've done my badges, and I've literally just been doing some stuff to do with referees courses, and I was watching it, and I can understand why it wasn't given. But I actually think that kind of helped liven you up a little bit
Oh
more because it
yeah.
actually made you
They were
quite
nervous.
angry. Yeah, and I think it actually calmed you down. And yes, okay, if the goal goes in, it might have been different, but I think you might have sat back as well. So I can see that there's a lot of positives happening at Blues now with these signings, and I think that, like I said, this is outside looking in. I think you're getting the right balance with your signings right now. I just think that this weekend you could be playing us at a good time. I think because we're both in transition,
Yeah.
but you're further along in the positive side of the transition than we are. So you've got this really nice base level of, you know, so when you're adding to it, you're adding to positivity,
Yeah.
whereas we've got negativity. So our positivity is starting a little bit lower down. So I'm a bit concerned about this weekend because I do think that the signings you guys have made have been positive. Stansfield does worry me a little bit. I mean, he can start a fight in a room on his own. But I think you've just got so much energy in that team, and now you're adding Gray in as well. I think once you guys settle down, I think you're going to get some really good results this year.
And so, where do you think then the weaknesses are within the Rovers team at the moment, if there are any?
It's going to be that final third. It's got to be that final third. Our creativity is just not there. It's as soon as we get into that final third, our decision making, our penetration, trying to get the ball through, it's just not there. There was a couple of times at the weekend, and I know it's easy for us to see from the stands. You know, in hindsight, it's 2020, but you're looking at some of the decision making. It's just not quite there. Like there'll be a time they cut it back and we recycle the ball when it's, do you know what, just stick it across the area, someone will go in, you never know, like let's just chuck it
All
in
over
there.
and it goes in off their backside. You know, it's those
Exactly.
everybody cries out for.
Exactly. So I think it's that final third. We've got some raw players. We've got a left winger, Augustus, that is a very fast player, this Augustus Cargbo, but he's extremely raw. And we've had to make some risky signings because of the running of the club. A lot of the money we've made has gone back into the running of the club. So the signings that we're making have been quite risky, low value, high risk. But I think if at the weekend he plays and he comes at you quite fast, I think you're going to be getting a few yellow cards, I hope. And then that's because that's what happened against West Brom. He came on. He's the guy that I think you was alluding to at the start.
Yep.
And Furlong got himself sent off. I think there was 3 yellow cards on him in the first 10 minutes of that second half. So I like to think that our identity now is getting a little bit more athletic. We just need to try and settle on that technical side in that final third.
Excellent. Well, now I'm going to test your knowledge a little bit because I've got to say, you know, I've done these on many occasions now, and this is where I'm going to ask you to name 5 players that have represented both clubs. Now, I'm going to say this should be pretty easy because the list of names that I found, and it's probably not all of them, but was phenomenal, actually. And when we look at some of the names, They stand out an absolute mile. So before we go into the prediction time, can you name 5 players that have represented Birmingham and Blackburn in either loan or permanent moves?
Well, it helps that living around here, I've seen quite a few down Broad Street in my time. David Dunn being one of them. I was
Indeed.
a bit gutted when you signed David Dunn, and I saw him down Broad Street, and he was pretty drunk. But yeah, I mean, you've had Barry Ferguson, Dwight York.
Indeed.
I don't want to mention Dion Sanderson because he was terrible, but we'll mention him. Savage, David Bentley.
Yep.
Scott Dan.
Scott Dan
at the back. Yeah, solid player.
There's so many, and I mean, you've mentioned some there, but we've also some names that people won't know that stand out as much. Jason Lowe, Josh Swan. You've mentioned David Dunn, Alex Bruce, which I've got to be honest, I didn't realise Alex Bruce had represented both clubs. So that was a new one to myself. You mentioned obviously Mr. Savage and Dwight York. Martin Tiny Taylor, one absolute Damien Johnson, absolute legend. I think he's still
he's
part
my backroom staff now.
Backroom staff. And then Jeff Kenner. I absolutely loved that guy. Being an old friend of myself, he was superb.
He won the Premier League at a club, didn't he?
He did indeed. Alan Kelly. So you had to get that little bit in, didn't you? There is that one.
I had to
you
get
can
something
have that one.
positive in.
Alan Kelly, goalkeeper. Mike Gould. I mean, legend.
Yeah. He was our first £1 million signing, he was.
And going back over the years, then we've got Paul Shepston, Andy Kennedy, Mick Rathbone, Gordon Taylor, of course, legend of both clubs, Bill Smith and Tommy Briggs. So there's some phenomenal names. And then, like I say, that's probably not all of them. So, weekend, I've already mentioned, massive following from a Birmingham perspective. It's going to be very loud in that Blue Nose end, and we'll be back in the boys to the hill. But what does your head say the result's going to be, and what does your heart say it'll be at the weekend?
I'm glad you've asked me to, because they are saying something different. Obviously, I've got a lot of mates, we've got a lot of family that are all Blue Noses, so I'm desperate to beat you. Absolutely desperate. I coach so many Blue Nose fans, and I know they're all going to give me stick. So, but my head says, and I know it's boring, but my head says a draw. I do think that we may take the lead. I think the first 10, 20 minutes are going to be massive in this game. I think the ref is going to make a big impact as well, as much as he shouldn't. I think he will, because it's the EFL. I think we'll take the lead. I think you will equalise, and it'll be 1-1 at half time. And I think the second half will be relatively drab, but my heart tells me we nick it at the end and we just break a few Blue Nose hearts. I've got to back my boys, haven't I?
You have. You know, I'm yet to meet someone, actually, tell a lie. When I recorded some of these last year, they were all going, you're going to win. But it's different in this league. Do you know, I'm pretty much the same as yourself. I actually do think that Blackburn will take the lead. And I think it'll be because it's your first home game. There's definitely, for me, whenever you play the teams on that first game at home, there's more momentum. And the people getting behind them, and obviously generally as large a crowd as well. So I think you'll take the lead. I do think, and obviously I'm going to back my boys, but I think we'll come out with a 2-1 victory at the end of it. I think it's going to be tough, but I just think at the moment, and just alluding to one of the things you said earlier, we might be playing you just at the right time, and there's a lot of very, very disappointed players after Friday night. And the one thing I saw last year, which I know will come out again, is they don't like it. And when they don't like it, it's dangerous to play Birmingham. And I think that will come through again. And Christy Davis has just got a fantastic mentality built into the team. They will stick up for each other. They will fight for absolutely everything. And if we see Newman the way that we saw Newman on Friday night, he was just a colossus. Nothing was getting past him. So I'm going to stick with the prediction of of a 2-1 win, but I do think it's going to be tough. However, we need to break that horrible duck at Ewood Park, and I am desperately hoping in front of those 7,000 plus that this weekend is going to be the one. So, Mike, thank you very much indeed for joining me to run through all of the areas of Blackburn ahead of our tie in the EFL Championship. Let's hope for a great game, a great atmosphere, and some fun on the day. The weather's going to be good, no doubt. The beer will be flowing, and everybody, please be well behaved. So, Mike, thank you very much for joining us on the away end, which is in association with AMG Logistics and the Birmingham City official supporters clubs. Here's to a great season for the rest of us. And thanks a lot, and keep right on.
Cheers, guys.